So one of the things that I hear a lot is I've got to feel into it. Or another thing that I hear is, oh, it hasn't aligned. The universe has said no, right? What a load of crap. Hi, my name's Elizabeth Eleanor. I'm an intuitive empath, and I'm doing 365 days here on YouTube, just sharing my beliefs, my story, 27 years as a healer. And I've learned a fair bit along the way. And I really wanted to share what I've learned and the value that I've received by listening to my intuition and, just going with what my higher self and my future self is here to achieve from a soul level. And one of the things is that 27 years, I've actually seen a lot of changes and development in the spiritual industry, like the spiritual development processes. And one of them is that I remember way back was if it didn't flow, then people would go, oh, then the universe, like my higher self or my guides are saying no, or it's not what I'm supposed to be doing, right? Because it didn't flow. In fact, the other day, I actually had someone come into my Facebook DMs and they wanted to book a call to have a chat with me about working together, and the link wasn't working, right? And she tried one way and then she tried another way. And then she came back and she said, oh, it's not working. Obviously, it's not aligned today in the universe, right? And I just want to address this because we think that when we're creating, it's in the universe and with our higher self and our intuition and all the things. And it actually isn't the case. So to start with, we're always creating. We are creative beings. We cannot help but create, right? We live and breathe creation. The thing is, though, we're often creating in our unconscious patterns. Our unconscious is quite tricky and quite powerful because our unconscious was created way back when we were in gestation. They say that our unconscious starts developing in those first formative or the very last quarter of the gestation. And then especially in the first 3 years of life, right? So in the first 0 to 3 and up to 7 and, a little bit more as we go and progress. But 0 to 3, we are in a brainwave frequency that is the same as if we've been hypnotized. So what does that mean? It means, as you've heard, I'm sure you've heard people say kids are like sponges, right? That's because I think it's theta, right? I always get it mixed up, but I'm pretty sure it's a theta wave, right? Which means there are no filters and there is no reasoning or discerning. So everything that you're getting from 0 to 3, you're just taking it all in without being able to question whether it's right or wrong. And one of the things that my business mentor or my coaches said way back, in a house full of thieves, it's the child that will not steal that gets into trouble, right? And what does that mean? It means that you learn from your culture, you learn from your environment, you learn from your family and the caregivers that are in in your family and in your house, the environment that you're living in. So if you've got brothers and sisters that are older or younger, whoever it is that is around you and you're being influenced by, that's what you're learning and how you're learning to behave. So if your parents weren't parents that cuddled or kissed or showed affection in any way, shape, or form in front of children, then you learn that that's a no-go zone, right? You learn how to deal with money, your relationship with money, whether you work for the man 9 to 5 or whether you own your own business. All of these factors are being absorbed into you from 0 to 3, and you learn all of these behaviors before you decide whether it's right or wrong. Then when we get older, we start trying to clean that mess up, right? Because we're learning from our forefathers and the mistakes that they made that are unconscious patterns that we're getting put into our in our neural pathways, right? We're wiring those neural pathways together. And now this becomes a pattern. And the it's like the software of a computer. Now, unless you go in and hack the system and reprogram it, it will be in the background doing its thing, and you're not even aware of it. So when we've got this happening, right, and our unconscious is saying, this is the way it is, and now what happens is our unconscious goes, I don't want to change because now this is my set point, right? I don't show affection in relationships, or I don't talk about money, or I'm a hoarder, or whatever it might be that you learnt in your family, and you want to change it, then that can be challenging because over here is really solid in you, right? So now you're growing up, you want to be, you've found the light, you've gone to a meditation class, and you're like, man, I want to be a spiritual hippie, right? And I want to learn all these things, and I've just discovered that this is the way it is, and I believe now that we're part of a universal plan, and our soul has contracts, and whatever it might be that you're starting to learn and experience, and you start learning to create. And when it comes to, if it's different to what your unconscious has already decided is right or wrong, then it will do its darndest to stop you having that process. So, for example, I have this story, right? I live down in I live down south from Sydney, right? So I live in Shell Cove near Sydney, but an hour and a half down south. I used to live in Far North Queensland, which is right at the top. Anyone that's not from Australia, it's right at the top where that little point is when you're looking at it, it's on the right-hand side. A beautiful rainforest area, and it was amazing, tropical area. And I went back up there and did some events, right? So I did some free events up there, and one of my friends came to a free event, and she said, my daughter is coming, and she's all excited about coming, but her babysitter has just rung up and said she can't make it. So now she's trying to find another babysitter. Now, this young girl had absolutely stunning, gorgeous, beautiful heart, all the things, had got in with the wrong crowd and ended up in jail for, I don't know, 3 years or something like that. And I think it had been 3 months or 6 months or something since she'd got out, right? So she's trying to clean her life up and get on with on with her life. And so she couldn't find the babysitter, right? I'm just about to start, and the woman comes up and says, she's found a babysitter, she's on her way. So I do my event, all the things, excited, everyone's buzzing, come out of that event, and I go over to her, I'm like, what happened to your daughter? She said, you wouldn't believe it. I just smiled. You wouldn't believe it. She said she was halfway here and her car broke down. Now, the spiritual development industry, when I was in it, way back, they would say that the universe stopped her and that the information wasn't for her. And I beg to differ, because what was happening is that our unconscious is just as powerful and part of that universe frequency. And so if it's got a frequency that she's radiating out, I don't deserve to have anything but what I have now, then her unconscious would stop her from being able to come. Yes, including stuff up her car, stop the babysitter, all of those things that we think are the universe or that are at our guides, and yet they can be our unconscious doing it instead. So it's really interesting when we give our power away to the universe, saying the universe is saying, you know, that this is not for me, instead of going, actually, I'm feeling really called to it, even though I've got blocks and bumps and things are getting in the way. I now see that this is me and my unconscious really desperately trying to stay in my old behavior. And so now I'm even more excited about shifting, because I know there's going to be a huge transformation that's going to happen through this event if I can, you know, if I can keep my focus and stay on track with it. The other thing that I find through this process is that we also go into this space of thinking that tension, we identify tension as stress or anxiety, or tension is not good. We've been given that language or that story in society that tension is not good. Now, psychological tension is not good, right? Because psychological tension is when we go into, I want to create this over here, but my psychological tension in my current reality is that I'm not deserving of it, I'm not good enough. And so it distracts, it pulls you back, and you go into lower frequencies, you know, maybe anxiety, maybe depression, maybe sadness, whatever your, you know, flavor is that you tend to go into, right? Anger, all of those things. However, there is creative tension. Yeah. Creative tension is very different. So creative tension is when this is what I want to create over here, and this is where I'm in my current reality. And I'm just going to completely focus on what it is that I want to create over here. And my current reality, because I'm not there yet, all the particles in my current reality need to be addressed, broken apart, anything that's not going to line up with what it is I want over here. Beautiful, loving, supportive relationship. If I'm not feeling worthy or deserving, then I need to clean those beliefs up, and they need to come to the surface so that I can see them, clear them in some way, mindset stuff, or recoding, which is what I do, clearing the stuff up from where it came from in the first place. You know, it's like turning off a switch of a cancer cell, you know, clearing that up, breaking it apart and neutralizing it so that I can now move towards what it is that I want to create. Now, when that starts happening, it can be a little bit of pressure. And again, I want to share a story, because as I've been growing in my business and wanting to become more impactful and create more and more people to recognize how powerful they are, it means being more on social media. It means being on here. It means actually showing my face and talking and doing all the things. And it means building up my skill set to actually get to that point of being able to talk on stages, to be interviewed by big people, be on magazines, all of those things, right? It's scary for an introvert that would rather sit at home and watch Netflix, right? And so to break that up from here, it means that there's things that are getting in the way. And just to give you an example, I started recognizing that the anxiety that I thought was anxiety, that I would start distracting me because I was feeling anxious about something, because my biggest dysfunctional pattern or constraint, if you want to call it that, is that I'm not capable, right? And I've done a lot of work around it. I've done a lot of recoding. So now you're going to always have it, right? We are here as humans, and humans mean that we've got our stuff that we're going to be working through, the layers, right? However, my incapable has gone from a huge wave where I feel like it just crashes like a tsunami and then I don't feel good enough and all the things, to, I can feel it. It's more like a swell, right? Oh, there it is again. I can feel it in my field and I can recognize it, and it doesn't trigger me like it used to. And so that's after doing recoding and clearing the stuff, right? So when that incapable was coming up, I'd have this next thing, next level nerve thing happening. And I need to put my computer on, my charger. And I recognized that what I thought was nervousness and anxiety is actually that creative tension. And so now what happened, and this was a few months ago, when I was doing stuff like this that was out of my comfort zone, instead of distracting myself whenever I felt that nervous tension, I'm like, I'm just about to have a big breakthrough. And through this feeling, which is anticipation of it, instead of seeing it as anxiety, I'm seeing it as anticipation. And so now I was able to identify it and to push through it and do the work anyway. And what happened was my neural pathways, like the nervous system that would trigger those neural pathways to wire together to create that chemistry in my body that would give me that anxiety, it slowly started breaking apart and moving away because it recognized I wasn't going to die, I'm safe, I'm still here, and moved into a place where now I don't have that anxiety or that feeling in my body when I'm doing something. Except for I've just decided I'm going to start doing a podcast, and that my podcast is going to be working with, my target audience will be with high profile, high performers. So very different to YouTube. And that brought up a little bit of that, feeling of anticipation again, because, I'm little old Elizabeth Blacktown, and it's been a hippie for however long, right? And so I'm like, oh, there's that feeling again. This means that I'm on the right track and that I'm just about to have another breakthrough. So just to summarize, don't give your power away to the universe and say that you are getting that this is not meant to happen because there's been some bumps, because the bumps can be your unconscious trying to stop you from growing and expanding and being all that you possibly can and living at your highest potential. So if you have bumps in the system, then just be aware that those bumps can be addressed, let them bubble up, clear them in whatever way. If you need to jump in, have a look at my website. There's free resources in there. There's a few different things. You can book a call and we can have a chat so that we can have a look at what it is and see if we can support you to move through it. If you got any value out of this, I'd love for you to give me a thumbs up. If you want to follow my journey as we move and progress through this, please hit the subscribe button and the bell for notifications, and I will catch you tomorrow. See ya.